Welcome back to my mother's live lessons. I know you will be really enriched if you pay special attention, particularly to this one. In fact, one day, as I came from school, I found my mother in the kitchen cooking. What surprised me, friends, as you listen here is, in the face of my mother, I witnessed interesting features. She was shedding tears as she was cutting an onion in the kitchen. She was also crying. She was also smiling at the same time. Then I asked myself, why is such a combination of this particular behavior in my mother's face? I went to think deeply. What was the symbolic of my mother crying? I realized that the crying came as a result of chopping the onion. You know, when you chop the onion, when it hits you in the eyes, you start shedding tears. I learned something, that this life is like peeling an onion one layer at a time. Sometimes you cry. There are many people who wish that life is comfortable all the time. No, learn from my mother. It is like peeling an onion one layer at a time. It is the onion that was making my mother to cry. And for those who have actually cooked and using the onion, when you cut and the sensation hits your eyes, you shed tears. What was the symbolic of my mother's sweat? It is because of the heat in the kitchen. You know, it was very hot. You know, where in the village there is no much ventilation, so it was very hot, and my mother was sweating. And she sweat because of the heat. And this life, you must experience heat. If something has to come, that heat must make you sweat. And remember, in the earlier episode, I talked about again sweat. You can see another issue is arising about sweat. Sweat must be a very interesting component of a lively success. The third aspect, what I saw in my mother's face, was the smile. Why do you think my mother was smiling? When she imagined that her children would enjoy the meal coming out of the onion, out of the cooking she was doing, my mother had no option other than to smile. What is the moral of this story? As you work, you go through turbulent times. As my mother was going through heat moments in the kitchen, onion is hitting her eyes and shedding tears. But remember, when you envisage the future on what will come as a result of you trying to make a meal or to do a business to struggle now, you smile. She was smiling because when she could imagine that her children seated down enjoying the meal which she has cooked, my mother had no option but just to smile. She had imagined seeing her children in the mind, sitting, enjoying the meal. My mother could smile. In fact, this issue of imagination reminds me, one of the greatest speakers I just love, Zig Ziglar, he said once that the greatest nation in the world, or the most powerful nation in the world, is not America after all. The greatest nation in the world is your imagination. And that one, my friends, hit me like thunder breaks when I imagined later on what is the meaning of the behavior of my mother in the kitchen.